This conference will now be recorded.
Hello students, I'm Dr. Divya from TeenEinstein. So we have started the new chapter, Diversity in Living Organism, which is the 7th chapter in 9th standard. And this is second part. So in this chapter, we are learning about what is the basis of classification. See, you know that diverse living forms are there on this earth. Different types of organisms are there. So on what basis you are classifying all these organisms? That is the first thing which we are learning. And secondly, like classification and evolution. What is the role of evolution in this classification? And based on what? How evolution happened and how this classification is done. That's what we are learning in that second topic. Then the hierarchy of classification about the groups, different groups which we have already classified, about that we are learning. So here in the first part, we have learned like different, so many types of organisms are there. Living organism, whether it's in plants or animals, living organisms, different types, different forms, in different structures, you can see lot of organisms. So there, if you're comparing, just you're considering two people, there you will get a chance to differentiate or to find out the difference between both of this, right? If you're comparing two plants, there also you can find out differences, right? So everything, each and everything is different. And if you're comparing two plants, you cannot say that they have same height, then they'll be having same structure. You cannot, generally we can say that both are plants, but in that case also many questions will arise, whether they have same height, same structure, whether they are utilizing same nutrients, their shapes are different, flowers or fruits. So like that, so many criterias will come, right? So based on what we are classifying, that's the question which we are getting from that, right? So if we are comparing ourselves with another person also, you will find out lot of differences, and similarities also will be there, differences also will be there, right? So the classification, similarities we can keep one side, like we, if you are belonging to the same group, that is based on that similarities. And how we will classify the organism, that classification is based on the differences, similarities and differences. See, in this group, 10 members are there. That is based on the similarities, they are coming into the same group. Based on differences, we are classifying two groups, group A and group B. So you should get the basic idea. So whatever the basic idea which we have explained very well in the first part. So there is a group A and group B. Okay. So based on that, see, you are considering plants. So in plants, whole plants, you are making group A and group B. In group A, 10 members are there or 10 plants are there. Okay. That 10 plants are into group A, that is based on the similarities. And why those plants got separated from plant B is having 8 plants. Totally here we are considering 18 plants. Plant uh, group B is having 8 plants. So how you separated these 8 and these 10 plants? Here based on the similarities you made group A, and based on similarities you made group B. Okay, and how you separated based on the differences between these plants, you made those into two groups. Okay, so there we need to consider similarities and differences. Okay, so similarities are helping them to put into a single group, and the differences are making them into separate groups. Clear? So here different forms of life occurs on earth, right? S- Even they are starting from microscopic bacteria, microscopic forms, to the larger ones, right? Then about the life cycle, they have difference in their life cycle also. So here life cycle difference will be there, their nutrition difference will be there. So in order to make relevant groups to study variety of this different types or variety of life forms, we need to decide some characters or some features. So to make groups, we need to decide the characters or the features. Okay, like some more fundamental differences among the organism we need to find out, and we need to make broad groups. First we need to make broad groups, and these broad groups that is based on the main features and based on the less important features. Main features means very important features, and less important features will make subgroups. Okay, so main group will be based on the main or important features, and the subgroups that will be based on the less important features. So here, what is the basis of classification? Like we can say broad divisions are made on the basis of that organism, or the based on the basic characters. Okay, that is making the broader groups. Okay, the next set of characters you can pick, and you can make subgroups. Okay, broader groups that starts from the base. Then subgroups you can, or divisions you can make based on the next set of characters. Clear? So we learned that what is the characteristic, or characteristic means a feature or a particular function. Okay, the main feature or the function that is called as the characteristic. Okay, so here in today's part we are going to learn like we know that mutually related characteristics are used for this classification. So for classification, mutually related features are being used. Okay, so nowadays we are looking into many interrelated interrelated features or characteristics we are concentrating. Like we can start from the nature of the cell, and that starts from the nature of that cell, which is a basic cell, is a basic unit. So in order to classify all living organism, the basic unit, the cell, also our features or the characteristics for the classification starts from the nature of that cell. So the very basic thing which we are considering, that is the nature of the cell. And there are some other characters also. So like first we can say a eukaryotic cell. Okay, eukaryotic cell. So what and all we are considering while we are starting the classification from the basic level or the nature of the cell. In a eukaryotic cell, we have learned about eukaryotic cell and prokaryotic cell, isn't it? So a eukaryotic cell that is having membrane bound organelles. Isn't it? And that is having nucleus, prominent nucleus is there, and that is also having a membrane, but it is porous, and here that membrane that can allow the cellular process to be carried out in an isolated area. Like in that, all the membrane bound organelles are there, right? In eukaryotic cell. So each cell organelle is having specific function. Specific function. So here, membrane bound cell organelles means from that what you can connect. Here, one cell organelle is membrane bound so that it can do its function in a separate place. Means inside that boundary that can conduct the function very clearly, right? So organism which is having membrane bound nucleus or membrane bound cell organelles, which is including nucleus, I'm saying, okay, that allows that cellular process to be carried out in an efficient way. Here, cellular process will take place in an efficient way. In an efficient way, that cellular process will be, or that allowed, or that specific function will be carried out in an efficient way. That means it will not disturb the work of other cell organelles. Right? Inside a cell, suppose this is a cell. Inside the cell, here one organelle is there, here another organelle is there, all are membrane bound. So, if this is membrane bound, it will not affect the functioning of this membrane bound organelle because it is in that membrane. Inside the membrane, all functions are taking place. So that it will not disturb the work of other organelles. So efficiently it can perform the function, and that is isolated from each other. Each organelle is isolated from the other one so that it can perform very well and in isolation with each other without disturbing the other organelles. It can clearly perform the function. See here, one clear nucleus is there and other organelles are there. So there, nucleus, inside the nucleus there will be some function, right? And the other organelles will be having its own pathway. So there, without affecting the pathways or the processes in other organelles, each organelle can work. Okay, and this is having an effect on that cell design. Okay, so based on that, cell design will be there. And another point here we need to mention, like cells with nucleus or nucleated cells means cells with specific nucleus that have the capacity to participate in making multicellular organism. Okay, this can make multicellular organisms. Okay, because these nucleated cells have the capacity to take up specific functions. So the nucleus can be the basic characteristic of the classification. Here we can take like a cell with nucleus and without nucleus. So that can be the basic character. Okay, one among the basic characters you can select as cell with nucleus and without nucleus. Okay, so eukaryotic cell that is having membrane bound organelle, and that is a specific, there you can see a specific nucleus that is also membrane bound. So without disturbing the function of one organelle, the another organelle can work. So what is happening there? In an efficient way, each and every organelle can perform its function, isn't it? So all these cellular processes will take place in an efficient way without disturbing each other. So the clear nucleus you can see in a eukaryotic cell, right? So that presence of nucleus and other membrane bound cell organelles that makes or that decides the structure of a cell, right? Based on the number of organelles and the effect of organelles or the functioning of organelles, the cell design will be there. And nucleated cells means a separate nucleus which are present in a eukaryotic cell that can make multicellular organism. Okay, because they can take up specific functions, isn't it? So here we can say nucleus, one character which we can decide the basis of classification, that is presence and absence of nucleus. So nucleus can be the basic feature of classification. Here nucleus that can be the basic feature or basic characteristic of classification. Okay, then another point. Now cell we have told. Next, these cells which are present, they are present in groups or that together form single organism. Here you can see many cells, multiple cells, and here you can see cell or group of cell that you can see division of labor. Okay, and each division will perform specific function. Each group of cells that will perform specific function which we can call as tissues. So there is a division of labor. So in such a body design, all cells will not be doing the same work. So all the cells will not be identical. So in multiple cells, you can see different types of cells. Cells as groups. So these different types of cells which we can see as group, you can call tissues, and many tissues and tissue system will be there which will be doing specialized functions. So that makes very basic distinction in the body design of that organism, right? So here specific cells or group of cells that does or that will be having specific function. That designs the body of organism. See, if in a body of an organism, some groups of cells are there which are performing their function in a specific way or in a clean way. And if the body design is not matching to perform that function, how it will work? It will be difficult for that organism. So that's why, based on the function of the cells or tissues which are performing, based on that, the body of an organism is structured. That structure will be formed in such a way that all the cells or group of cells or tissues can perform their specific function without any problem, without any disturbance. Okay, so that's the second point here. Design, body design of an organism, that will be based on the function of all the cells or group of cells, right? So here, single cell organism is having single cell, or like amoeba which is having single cell. That amoeba is different from a caterpillar. Caterpillar, amoeba is single cell, but with that structure it is performing different function. Caterpillar is multicellular, right? So that multicellular organism can perform different functions. Their group of cells or tissues will be performing different functions, and that also they are doing in a coordinated way. So the whole organism can live without any problem, right? So there, amoeba and a caterpillar both are having very different body structure, and these structures are designed on the basis of their function or their body, how the body is functioning. Here only the single cell is doing the functions, so based on that, that body structure will be here. Multicellular organism, and among all the cells, different group of cells will be performing different functions. So based on that, their function will be, or body structure will be designed in a caterpillar, right? Then next point of classification, what is that? Whether the organism is producing or synthesizing their own food. On food or not. So, do the organism produce their own food through the process of photosynthesis? See, one organism is producing their own food. Means in the case of plants, it's possible, isn't it? In the case of plants, it's possible, and they are producing their own food by what? Which process? That is called as photosynthesis. Synthesis in the presence of light. Photosynthesis, right? So, there one classification comes. If organism is producing on food, this belongs to one group, first group, and the second group, collecting food from others. Collecting food from outside. Okay, having food, collecting food to have that food from outside. Okay, so they're collecting food from outside. This is second group. right? So on basis of photosynthesis or synthesis of food, which they are synthesizing their own food, plants can synthesize their own food. Animals, they need to depend upon plants for their food, right? In a direct or indirect way, they are depending on the other organism for food. So that is another criteria for what? For this classification. Okay, and based on that, here body structure differs, right? That's why plants and animals have different body structures. One can synthesize their own food, another need to depend in a direct or indirect way to plants for their food, isn't it? And here you will get one more question. The organisms which are producing their own food, producing on food, through which one? Photosynthesis. Which organism can do that? Plants. Plants are doing this, isn't it? Plants are doing this work. They are producing, they are doing photosynthesis. So, what is the level of organization of their body? Level of organization of their body. What is the level of organization of their body? Of which one? Of plants. Then, the organism which are depending upon plants in a direct or indirect way for their food. They are animals, right? So, what is the body organization or the level of organization of animal body? And they have different parts and they have specialized organs for function. So based on that also we can do classification. So here in the case of first classification comes whether they are synthesizing their food on food or not. Based on that you can classify plants and animals. And in plants itself you can make classification, and in animals itself you can make classification. Then in animals again you are classifying like whether that organism is having different parts and what are the specialized parts or organs which are found for different function. Based on that you can make further classification. Okay, so here overall what we can see here, we can see that even in these few questions there the hierarchy is developing, right? Here based on the body design itself you can make plants and animals, that classification, right? So plants will be very different from those of these animals, and this is firstly because of the body design, and they are based on, they are making their own food here. Plants are making, animals are not making. Then here animals, they'll be having skeletal system and all. Here animals have skeletal system, plants don't have, that is absent. Animals have skeletal system, and based on the skeletal system different types of skeletal system, on that you can make subgroups. Okay, and here plants are synthesizing food, and based on their mode of synthesis you can make different groups or subgroups among plants. So like that major groups and subgroups are forming. Okay, so next comes, so these are the main criteria for or the basis for classification. Okay, so next comes the classification and evolution. Here, all the living organisms or all the living things, they are identified and they are categorized on the basis of their body design. Okay, and their function. All organisms, they are classified based on body, design, and function. See, now this part will be boring, like the basic features we are discussing, like what is classification and what is evolution and all. Next, about each group, but you need to remember these points because next onwards, what we are going to do, we are classifying different groups. Okay, about we are classifying the organism into different groups. So there, which and all the characters which we are keeping, which is making that group and which is differentiating this group from other group, that and all you need to note down. That's why repeatedly I'm saying here, what and all the basic features. All organisms are classified based on body design and the function, right? So some features are likely to make more wide-ranging changes in the body design compared to others. Right, sometimes wide range of body design you can see in some groups. And this wide range of body design or different forms of the same body design you will be able to see in some groups, and that is not within 1 or 2 days happened. Okay, so that body designs, there you can see wide range in the body design compared to the others. So once a certain body design comes into existence, it will shape the effects of all other established character, right? So the newly formed characters that is recently started and that is coming out, that is struggling for that existence. Okay, so in that changes may come. So the characteristics that's already came into the existence or which character came earlier, that are likely to be, or the already established characters are likely to be more basic characters, which compared to which one, compared to newly formed characters. Okay, the character which came later compared to that earlier characters have already established, so that we can consider because there are less changes going to happen in that, but newly formed characters may change. Okay, so what do you mean by that? Here this means classification of life forms that is having relation with the evolution. Classification that is close to evolution or that is closely related to their evolution. So here obviously you will get a question like, what is evolution? What is this evolution? See, most of the organisms which we are seeing today, most of the organism. Most of the organisms which we are seeing today that have arisen by an accumulation of changes in the body design. So today's forms there, that is the accumulation of changes since so many years. Okay, so there is a existing form means that is arisen by an accumulation of changes in the body design which is present in the previous form. So that allows the organism processing them to survive in a better way. Okay, so 100 years ago, how was the climatic condition? And today, what is the condition? So there will be slight changes, right? Not a drastic change, but definitely changes will be there. So based on that change, body design, that also may change, right? So that change is helping them to survive. Change helps to survive or exist in a better way. Okay, here Charles Darwin was the first person who described this idea of evolution. He was the first person who described the idea of evolution. Okay. In 1859, he explained this in the book Origin of Species. Origin of Species. In that book, he mentioned role of evolution in classification. So when we are connecting this idea with evolution, we can make or we'll find some groups of organisms which have ancient body designs and that have not changed very much. Okay, when we are connecting the concept of evolution to the organism, there we can see some organisms which have ancient body design and that have not changed very much. Ancient body design and not with much changes. Okay, and there will be some other group of organism, their body design, in that you can see much changes. This is one group. In there you can see ancient organism body design which is matching with the current one, or there is no much changes. Another group will be there. There will be ancient form. Ancient form, one old form will be there and much changes. So many changes happen to that, and there will be a current form. Okay, so you can see like find group of organisms that have acquired their particular body design very recently, relatively recently they have acquired a particular body design. So the first group here, the first group or the ancient group, they were called that we can call as primitive forms or the old forms. Primitive forms means they are the old forms or the lower organism. And for this lower type of organism, lower in the sense lower in the features, so those features got evolved and the recently seeing forms will have they might have evolved from these primitive forms. Okay, so here the second group, here you can see the current one, the second group that you can call as the higher organism. Okay, that's how the concept of the primitive forms and higher organism that came. Okay, so that is a reality. So these terms are uh, not proper, actually not proper in the sense not quite correct, because they do not properly relate to the differences. So we can say that some are older organism, but some are younger organism. So some older organisms are there, some younger organisms are there. So there is a possibility that the complexity in design that will increase over evolutionary time, and that may not be wrong to say that older organisms are simpler. Okay, so compared to the older organism, the newly formed ones or the younger organisms will be having complex designs, because from the older organism, evolution is taking place, or evolution, that's a continuous process, continuously organisms are getting evolved, and to the new forms or young one, you can see from the simple forms there is a complex form formation. Okay, so as a part of evolution, the younger organism will be having the complex structure, and the older organisms will be having simple structure compared to the younger organism. Clear? So here, this is the role of classification in evolution. And next we can see the hierarchy of classification. Okay, so here we need to learn three names, like three names of biologists. Ernest Haeckel, Ernest, sorry, Ernest Haeckel in 1894. Then Robert Whittaker, Whittaker in 1969. Then Carl Woese, in 1977, recently. So all these three scientists, they have tried to classify the living organism. They tried, they haven't completed, we cannot complete it, classified living organism into broad categories. Okay, so these categories, broad categories, are called as kingdoms. And here Whittaker's he proposed 5 kingdom classification. Robert Whittaker, he proposed 5 kingdom classification, and different kingdoms are coming like Monera, then Protista, fungi, plantae, animalia, and all. And that is widely used one. Which one? This is widely used one. Five kingdom classification by Robert Whittaker in 1969. He proposed this five kingdom classification and people are using that. Okay, it's widely used. So the groups are formed on the basis of their cell structure. Groups, they are formed on the basis of cell structure. Then mode of nutrition. That's what I said. Different features they will select to classify the organism. First character Robert Whittaker selected for his five kingdom classification, that is the basic cell structure, then mode of nutrition and body organization. These features he selected for the classification. Okay. Then here, the last one. This five kingdom classification is widely used, and the last one here we said the recent one, 1977. One modification is introduced by Carl Woese. Modification. Because according to Robert Whittaker, he made five kingdom classification like Protista, fungi, plantae, animalia, then Monera. Here, a modification is made by Carl Woese, and in that, according to that modification, kingdom Monera is divided into Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. Okay, this is the further modification which is brought about by Carl Woese. Kingdom Monera is divided into Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. Okay, so now we are using that also. Then all other classification or further classification is done by naming the subgroup at various levels as given in the scheme. I'll write the scheme now. Right, first kingdom. This is the major one. Then comes the class. Phylum for animals and division for plants. First kingdom, then comes the phylum. Phylum which comes for animals. For plants, division. While writing about the plant classification, we will write first kingdom, then phylum. But in the case of animals, first we will write kingdom, then we'll come to phylum. So kingdom, phylum or division. Next comes the class. Next we will ask which class organism belonging to. Then comes order. Okay. After order, family. Then genus. Then comes the species. Okay. So like this, we can separate the organism on the basis of hierarchy of characters into smaller and very smaller groups. And here you can see that the basic unit, that is basic unit of classification, that is species. Okay, so based on this, first kingdom, then In the case of animals, we can write as phylum, and in the case of plants, we can write division, then class, then order, family, genus, species. Like that, we can make classification of organism. Okay. So, which are the main 5 kingdoms proposed by Whittaker? Kingdom Monera, then Protista, third one is fungi, fourth one is Plantae, Kingdom Plantae, fifth one is Kingdom Animalia. Okay, so these are the 5 main kingdoms proposed by Whittaker. Okay, and here later Carl Woese, he introduced one new classification. Kingdom Monera is divided into Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. So like that, one classification brought about by whom? Carl Woese. Okay. So in the next class onwards, we will learn each kingdom one by one. We will learn each kingdom with examples we can learn. So that now you got the idea about classification, how we are classifying and subclassified classes, how we are making all these things, right? So basic features, mainly we are selecting which are all features for the classification. So next class onwards, about each kingdom we are going to learn the 5 kingdom classification proposed by Whittaker. We'll see on what basis he made the classification which is widely used now. So that classification on what basis they are doing and how they are separating 2 types of organisms. Everything we'll learn by learning about the features of each group. You will come to know how we have classified that or how we made that classification and why we are still using that classification. Okay. So in the next class, we'll be learning about different characteristics of 5 kingdoms. 5 kingdom classification which is proposed by Whittaker. Okay, thank you.